today we're going to be looking at a critique
Okay.
of Seth Godin's The Dip.
Interesting.
Yeah. Have you read The Dip?
I have, yeah. It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Mm.
A while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this document that was sent in,
Okay.
the Strategic Pitfalls in the Dip,
Okay.
it's pretty interesting. It's made me think twice about some of the stuff that Godin talks about. So I'm interested to kind of pick your brain about this a little bit.
Yeah.
So one of the things is, I remember reading the book, Godin really talks about scarcity being this driver of value.
Yes.
But this critique kind of argues that that might not be universally true
Yeah.
in all cases.
It makes sense, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, there's so many industries and examples where, like, especially today with the internet,
Right.
you know, the idea of open source is something that's, you know, driven
by abundance.
By abundance, yeah, exactly. And it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because, I mean, thinking about the work that you do.
Yeah.
You've told me that you've been involved in a lot of these open source projects.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you? I mean, is that definitely?
Definitely. Like, I'm in software.
Mm-hmm.
And in software, sharing knowledge is like, that's the key.
Yeah.
If people were trying to be like, oh, no, I'm going to, like, keep all this proprietary,
right,
it would stifle everything.
Yeah, it would really hurt the entire industry.
Yeah, it would just slow everything down.
So it sounds like this scarcity equals value that Godin talks about. It's like, yeah, maybe, but...
Yeah, it's not always true.
Not always.
There's nuances.
Yeah. So it's interesting that this critique then goes on to sort of challenge Godin's view of what he calls dabbling.
Yeah.
You know, where he says, you really should quit anything that you're not going to be number one at.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't be the best, don't even bother.
Right. But this document makes the case that dabbling, if we think of that as strategically, you know, exploring different areas to gain different skills, that could actually be a strength. I
mean, it's like saying, don't try to learn anything new.
Right.
Don't even bother, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's more about...
I'm a big believer in having a versatile skill set, you know, and that can really help you succeed in whatever you're doing.
Yeah. It makes me think about, you were telling me about your career path.
Yeah.
You didn't just immediately like land in the field.
No.
You're in now, right?
Yeah, it took a while.
You kind of had to explore a few things.
Tried a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say I failed at some of them, but I learned something from all of them.
Yeah.
And it's funny how, like, looking back, it all makes sense.
Right.
You know, like, it all kind of led me to where I am now.
It's like connecting the dots.
Yeah, exactly.
Back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this document refers to as these serial projects. You know, Godin sees that as quitting. But this critique is saying, well, no, it's you're building this portfolio of expertise.
Yeah, you're not quitting. You're just taking what you've learned and applying it to something new.
Yeah.
So
think of it this way, like each project you do, even if you don't like win in the traditional sense, you're adding a new tool.
Exactly. Yeah. You're adding to your toolbox.
Yeah.
And that's valuable, you know?
Yeah.
In today's world, you got to be adaptable. Things change so quickly.
Right.
You got to be able to keep up.
Yeah. It's kind of like the slashy trend that we're seeing now where people aren't afraid to be like designer / writer /
multi-hyphenate.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to be successful in today's world.
Yeah. Are you seeing that playing out in your field at all?
Yeah, definitely. The most successful people I know are not afraid to try new things.
Right.
You know, they're always learning. They're always experimenting. And that's what allows them to stay ahead.
So instead of being number one in any one area, it's like you're number one in...
Yeah, maybe it's more about being well-rounded.
Oh, yeah.
You know, having a lot of different skills that you can apply to different situations.
Yeah, and being able to adapt those to whatever comes up. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to look at it.
It's like a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Being able to adapt.
Yeah.
That's the key. You know, it's funny you should say that, because that kind of leads into another point that this critique makes, which is this whole idea of Godin's really big on being number one.
Right.
And this document is saying, well, hold on, maybe that limits our perspective on things.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just challenging the how, but the what almost.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like, it's saying that fixation on being the best can maybe blind us to the power of collaboration and to the value of incremental progress.
I see what you mean. It's like you get so focused on like winning the race that you don't enjoy the scenery along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you miss out on the journey because you're so focused on the destination.
Yeah. And yet I think about like, you know, when a team comes together to do something.
Right.
That's really extraordinary. Like, let's say, you know, some kind of breakthrough technology.
Yeah.
It's not any one person.
No, exactly.
It's the whole team.
Yeah. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think Godin kind of overlooks in his book.
Yeah. And this critique highlights the Human Genome Project as a good example of that.
Yeah. I mean, that was a massive undertaking.
Right.
And it took thousands of scientists all over the world to make that happen.
Yeah. So maybe the real success is in realizing that we're all kind of part of this larger ecosystem.
I like that.
And we're all contributing in our own way.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah, it's less about individual glory.
Yeah.
And more about
more about the collective
achievement. Yeah, and I think this is really making me rethink my whole definition of success, you know.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's always good to challenge your assumptions.
Right.
And to be open to new ideas.
Absolutely.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another point that the document raises, which is this idea of flexibility versus persistence. So Godin is all about pushing through the dips, right?
Yeah, like don't quit.
Yeah. You got to be persistent. You got to keep going, even when things get tough.
Right.
But this critique is saying, well, you know, true resilience also involves knowing when to adapt.
Yeah, like sometimes it's better to change course than to just keep hitting your head against the wall.
It's not always about brute force persistence. Sometimes it's about being smart.
Being strategic.
And knowing when to adjust your approach.
Right. And maybe that's where, you know, looking back, you connect those dots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to look back and see how everything fits together.
Right. So it's like that classic analogy of the sailor, who's navigating through stormy seas.
Yeah. You can't just keep sailing full steam ahead.
Right.
If the wind and the currents are against you.
Right. You got to adjust your sails.
Yeah.
You got to maybe even change.
Yeah, you got to be course completely.
Yeah, you got to adapt to the situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Godin's framework can be a little bit misleading.
Right. Because it's kind of like all in or all out.
Yeah, it's very black and white.
Yeah.
But real life is more nuanced than that.
Right.
You know? There's a lot of gray areas.
Yeah, and this reminds me of something you were saying earlier about your own career path.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't just sort of stubbornly stick to one narrow path.
No, I had to make adjustments along the way.
Yeah, you had to pivot.
Yeah.
Based on what you were...
I had to let go of some things that weren't working.
Yeah.
And I had to embrace new opportunities that came up.
Right.
And it was scary at times. Yeah. But it was also exciting.
And I bet looking back, it all makes sense now. Yeah, it does. It all makes sense.
Yeah. So that's a really good insight, I think, especially for anyone who's sort of still figuring things out.
Yeah. It's okay to change your mind.
Yeah.
It's okay to pivot.
It's okay to adapt.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to try new things and to see where they lead you.
Right. So if we're not just blindly pushing through every dip and we're open to adapting, how do we know
that's the coin.
When to stick with something and when to let go?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, that's the big one.
I don't know if there's an easy answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with being honest with yourself.
Right.
About what you want and what you're willing to do to get it.
Yeah. And this critique sort of says, well, you got to understand the difference between...
the temporary and a dead end.
And a dead end.
Yeah.
So it's about discernment.
Yeah.
Right.
Not all dips are created equal.
Right. Some are worth pushing through, and others might be a sign.
It's a sign. Okay, time to
move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back to that question of how do we know if we're in a temporary dip or a true dead end?
Right.
It really feels like the heart of it all, especially after talking about all these nuances.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
This document doesn't really give you a clear-cut answer.
Right.
But it does point you in the right direction.
Okay.
For some serious self-reflection.
It makes sense. You can't just have like a formula.
Right, yeah.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what kind of self-reflection are we talking about here?
Well, first of all, it asks you to look at your motivation.
Okay.
Why are you doing this?
Right.
Is this something that you're really passionate about?
Yep.
Or are you just doing it because you think you should?
Right. Like, are you energized by it?
Yeah.
Even when it's hard?
Exactly.
Or does it feel like a chore?
Yeah. Are you dreading it?
Yeah.
That's a good sign that maybe it's not the right thing.
Okay, so check in with that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Beyond just gut feeling, though.
Yeah.
There's also this idea of like the long-term potential.
Yeah. Right.
Like if I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
Is this actually going to lead me somewhere?
Exactly. Is it aligned with your goals?
Yeah.
With your values?
Yeah. Am I just clinging to this because it's comfortable?
Right.
Even though maybe I've kind of outgrown it?
Yeah. Maybe it's time to move on.
Like we were talking about with that garment analogy.
Exactly.
Maybe you've changed.
Yeah.
Your clothes don't fit anymore. Maybe it's time for some new clothes.
Exactly.
So, okay, passion is important.
Yeah.
But it's not everything.
Right. You got to be practical, too.
You got to be real with ourselves. Like,
yeah.
If my dream is to write novels, but I'm stuck in this data entry job, that's sucking away all my creativity.
Yeah.
That might be a sign that something needs to shift, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, the document also talks about this idea of opportunity cost.
Yes.
What am I giving up by staying on this path?
What else could you be doing?
Yeah. Are there other opportunities out there?
Yeah.
That might be a better fit.
Exactly.
Sometimes I think we get so focused on like what's right in front of us. We forget to even look around.
Yeah.
Like there's that saying, sometimes you got to close a door to open a window.
I love that.
So it's about being curious, right? Being open to those new possibilities and being willing to adjust our plans.
Absolutely.
As we learn and grow.
Yeah, you got to be adaptable.
All right, so we've talked about motivation,
yeah,
long-term potential, opportunity cost.
Right.
Are there any other big factors?
Yeah, there's one more.
Okay, feedback.
Are you getting good feedback?
Yeah.
Are people helping you grow?
Right. Are they giving me constructive criticism? Or is it just like constant negativity?
Yeah. Are you hitting a wall every time you try to move forward?
Okay. So it's not just looking inward.
Right.
It's looking to other people.
Yeah. Get some outside perspective.
My mentors, my colleagues, my friends.
Yeah.
Are they supporting me or are they kind of like red flags all over the place?
Are they mirroring back to you?
Yeah.
That maybe this isn't working.
Sometimes we need that outside view.
Absolutely.
To get some clarity.
Yeah, sometimes you're too close to the situation.
Right.
You need someone to step back and give you an honest opinion.
It's like having a guide on a hiking trail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They can point out those hazards, encourage you when you're feeling tired.
Yeah.
But if they're leading you in circles,
right,
or towards a cliff,
you might need a new guide.
Time for a new guide.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we got to surround ourselves with those supportive people
who
can really help us see those blind spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, we're looking at our motivation.
Yeah.
The long-term potential, the opportunity cost,
right,
the feedback we're getting.
Yeah.
And we're still not sure.
Yeah.
What's the final word of advice?
Trust your gut.
Ah, okay.
Sometimes deep down, you already know the answer.
Right.
You're just afraid to admit it.
That little voice inside, it's like, this isn't right?
Exactly.
But it's so easy to ignore it.
It is.
Especially when you're scared of making the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But this document reminds us that there is no wrong choice.
Yeah.
It's just choices that lead to different paths.
Exactly. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is trust your gut.
And step away from something that's not serving you.
Exactly.
So we're embracing the unknown.
Yes.
We're trusting the journey. We're believing that even if we don't have all the answers right now, we'll figure it out.
You'll find your way.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad.
It's really made me think about how I define success. And it's given me this like new framework for approaching my goals.
That's great to hear.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No.
Sometimes you got to stick with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to pivot.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
It's all part of the journey.
So for everyone listening out there,
yeah,
I hope this has given you some new things to think about.
I hope so.
Maybe a new perspective. On your own path, remember, there's no one right way to do this thing called life.
Absolutely.
You got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
Embrace all the ups and downs. And trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It was great being here.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.